Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are decoding a really fascinating dynamic, one that I'm guessing almost all of us have experienced firsthand. We're talking about why refusing to just blindly follow the rules isn't actually a character flaw at all. In fact, your brain's outright rejection of blind obedience, it might literally be your greatest cognitive strength. So let's break down the hidden architecture of the questioning mind.
Let's start with a scenario I am willing to bet you know all too well. Picture this. You've been handed a task at work, or maybe a strict rule back when you were in school, right? And you just pause for a second and you simply ask why. And the only answer you get back is, well, because I said so. Or, my personal favorite corporate classic, because that's just the way we do things around here. Think about how that felt. You probably felt this instant, massive wall of resistance just shoot right up in your mind. It's a shared pain point for so many analytical thinkers out there, being completely stonewalled by authority when you were literally just trying to understand the purpose behind an action. And because of that completely natural reaction, you have likely faced a pretty severe social penalty over the years. You know the labels. You've probably been called stubborn, or difficult to manage, or just overly rebellious. Throughout your life, authority figures might have slapped these negative words on you simply because you needed an explanation. Society just has this deeply ingrained habit of viewing the demand for context as a direct threat. They see your hesitation and they immediately assume it's a bad attitude or intentional defiance.
Okay, let's dive into this, because this is where psychology completely flips the script on everything you've ever been told. The big reveal here is actually incredibly empowering. Refusing to follow instructions without understanding the reason behind them, that is absolutely not a sign of a bad attitude. No way. Psychology reveals that it is actually a powerful indicator of a highly intelligent, independent mind. Your so-called defiance isn't a glitch in the system, it's a feature. It's a feature of a highly analytical brain that simply refuses to accept information at face value.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how completely differently our brains process information. When an average mind is given a rule, their thinking usually just stops right at the surface facts. They hear the instruction and they simply accept it, move on. But notice how a highly intelligent mind operates. It's totally different. It naturally digs for deeper reasons. When you ask why, your brain isn't trying to stall or be annoying. It's actively trying to build complex cause and effect chains. You don't just want to memorize a command. You desperately want to understand the entire system behind it.
And to actually ground this in science, psychology gives this exact drive a specific name. It's called the need for cognition. Basically, this means your brain quite literally requires a clear, logical framework before it will authorize the release of mental energy for a task. You simply cannot spend your cognitive resources until you understand why a task actually matters. It's essentially a built-in protective mechanism for your mental energy, ensuring you don't waste your time on pointless directives.
And here is why this matters so much for your cognitive development. Psychological research shows that this specific habit, this relentless and, yes, sometimes exhausting drive to constantly dig for the why, is the exact mechanism that improves abstract reasoning. By constantly demanding that logical framework, you are actually exercising the exact mental muscles that separate average intelligence from high intelligence. Every single time you refuse a baseless rule so you can search for the underlying reason, you are literally making your brain stronger and more capable of complex thought.
And this brilliantly illustrates why there's so much environmental friction. Just think about the rigid environments you've been placed in throughout your life. Traditional schools, strict corporate workplaces. What do these systems actually do? Well, they reward blind obedience, right? And they actively discourage your natural instinct to question things. This completely explains that deep, lingering frustration you always feel in those settings. You aren't broken. You've just been operating in systems that are actively hostile to deep, analytical thinking.
So we need to completely reframe your relationship with authority based on this data. Psychology has actually found that higher intelligence is strongly linked with lower conformity. You just don't accept traditions simply because that's how it's always been done. But crucially, and this is a big one, you don't challenge these norms, systems, and authority figures just to cause trouble. You challenge them because your analytical mind is constantly looking for ways to optimize and fix flawed norms. You are trying to improve the system, not destroy it.
So the crucial point is this really fascinating concept called psychological reactance, because beyond just logic, we also have to look at your internal drive for personal freedom. Psychological reactance happens when people feel like their freedom or independence is being unfairly restricted. When someone just barks an order at you without explaining it, your brain's automatic defense mechanism immediately kicks in. It pushes back to restore that lost sense of freedom. So you aren't being difficult on purpose. Your mind is literally reacting to a perceived threat to your autonomy.
And people who experience this strong psychological reactance, the kind of people who absolutely hate being told what to do, possess a massive, deeply ingrained need for autonomy. It ultimately comes down to control. You deeply crave the feeling of being in complete control of your own decisions. Because of this, you are highly sensitive to power dynamics. Your brain acts like a radar, instantly noticing when someone is trying to unfairly dominate, coerce, or control you without actually earning that right through logic.
Which leads us straight to your ideal operating process. You have an incredibly strong sense of personal responsibility, which means you absolutely refuse to be a mindless robot in someone else's poorly designed plan. Instead, you require 3 distinct steps. First, you need to understand the logical framework. Second, you have to evaluate all the options for yourself. And third, you take genuine ownership of the outcome. You strongly prefer forming your own conclusions and making truly independent choices.
And when you are actually allowed to follow that process, the result is incredibly powerful. You achieve success fueled by logic and understanding, not just blind orders. Think about when you do your absolute best work. It's when you make your own decisions based on true understanding, right? That creates a genuine sense of ownership over the outcome. You want to succeed because you fully understand the mission and you actively chose to execute it. You don't want to succeed just because someone ordered you to perform. Autonomous motivation is infinitely more powerful than forced compliance.
So, to bring this all together, the next time someone gets annoyed with you for asking why before you agree to do a task, do not let them make you feel like you are just being difficult. You are not a rebel without a cause. You simply possess a highly analytical, independent cognitive architecture, one that fundamentally respects personal autonomy, requires a logical framework, and absolutely refuses to operate on blind obedience. It is a strength. It is not a deficit.
I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to really chew on. What if the systems calling you rebellious are simply too fragile to handle your questions? If this explainer felt like a mirror into your own life today, I want you to use this psychological data to reclaim your narrative. Stop apologizing for your analytical mind. Turn your unique questioning wiring into your greatest professional and personal strength. And hey, if you want to keep decoding the real psychology behind human behavior with us, make sure you hit that subscribe button for more. Thank you so much for exploring this with me today, and whatever you do, keep asking why.